Hey everybody, week 2 of the going beyond your camera. Okay, I want to review some of the files, homework files that from last week. Now, last week we talked about how to prepare your images in Adobe Camera Raw, working with images from a value-based position. So I'm going to take a look at a couple of them here. I'm not going to review everybody's homework because that'll take the whole class. I don't want to do that. I just want to kind of review a few of them. I'm going to choose a few of them. Then I want to talk about them. I'll start with this one here. And kind of bring this up a little bit and bring this on over so it's easier for everybody to see. And we've got this shot. Here's the original raw file. And I'm going to go ahead and maximize it here so you guys can see it on the entire screen. And then I'm going to, so Eric is saying that I'm cutting in and out also, just to make I'm just making a note of it. All right, so I'm going to, and also see another question here. David Wilkinson says, opening an image in Photoshop, I can then convert it to a smart object. Open Camera Raw, that's correct. Make changes, save to Photoshop, and then I can turn off smart objects to make changes. Yes, you can. Within Bridge, I don't see how to save an image with smart object and open in Photoshop. Okay. Eric says he's hearing me cutting that out also. So was Eric the one that originally, and Don said that. Okay, so guys, remember, it's your bandwidth. You guys are, I'm not quite sure how Hawaii handles things, but I would assume Hawaii's bandwidth is probably a lot lower than us here at the mainland, where I'm actually cabled in, where you guys are probably using satellite. So just be aware that I may cut in and out a little bit, but it'll catch up. Adobe Connect is pretty good about getting you guys to catch up. All right, we're also missing Faye here, just as a note. So I will send her a note as well. She should be here. I spoke to her yesterday. All right, now we're talking about using values. So this is one image. Kind of go back and let's go take a look at what was done there. Okay, now I want to make a comment on this because the exercise that I shared with you last week was a way of improving upon your image but maintaining that detail, right? So as I go to here, I see the improvement in terms of sharpness and I'm seeing more detail, but I'm also seeing the whites becoming blown out. So be careful of that. So if I take this image, I'm going to open this up in Adobe Camera Raw. I'm going to select it, Command or Control R. Okay. And this should open up ACR. And what's funny is that it, there we go. It opened it up on my other screen. So I'm going to pull it right over to here. Okay. Let's kind of scroll this down a little bit. There we go. Okay. So in Adobe Camera Raw, working with the raw image. So what I'm going to do is the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go to the Basics tab. And I'm going to go pull it down to saturation and pull out all the saturation. In this process here, I'm going to go ahead and Control plus, right? I'm going to pull this down here so we can see the thumbnail without it being distracted. I can just take that away, by the way. And I can always come back here and click on it and drag it up to bring it back again. So I'm in kind of the film strip mode here. So I'm going to just pull it out of the way so we can see most of the image. Now, and I'll check back and forth on the Adobe Connect to look at your messages in chat box. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and just bring it open here. Let's see. Kathy Chamberlain just sent me an email. I just want to make sure that I'm not missing anybody. I think she's one of our students. So let me just check that real fast. All right. So taking a look at this. Oh, so Rick Noyle says you guys also have fiber optics in Hawaii, not only coconuts. Okay, so you guys can slap Rick whenever you like. so, so, okay, we're going to take a look at this image here. I want detail, but I don't want to sacrifice the highlights. Remember what we did last week was we started with the shadows. I'm gonna go now. I'm looking at what he did here, and in Adobe Camera Raw, and his XMP file, it remembered all of his settings. Those XMP files are important. So XMP files is simply a text document that with the same name as your image document. And I'm going to show you here inside of let's see, there we go. So see right here where it says 1815 1815.crw. Your XMP file is the exact same thing. It's the exact same name. IMG 1815 instead of .cr2, it says .xmp. All right. So this is the file that keeps track of everything you've done in Adobe Camera Raw. And good job, everybody, on sending me those XMP files. So taking a look at this, I'm going to take a look at what he's done. He's got his shadows. He brought his shadows down, which is what I wouldn't do in this one. And I'm going to take a look at your highlights. Highlights are down, which is good. That's a good thing. Whites we can probably bring down more. This is what we're going to do. I'm going to take the shadows up. So I've got plenty of detail on those shadows. It's looking flat, right? Okay. Highlights, I see he brought down because they were pretty bright. He brought them down, which makes sense. But because I brought my shadows way up high, and look, he brought his whites down too. So I bring the whites down even more. It helps add a little more detail in there. But because I brought the shadows way up, it affords me the ability to take the exposure down, starting to bring in a little more detail in the highlights. Now, it's a possibility if I mouse over this, and if you look at your RGB values up here, I'm going to I tell you what, I can just take my mouse, place it over this highlighted area, and you can see it's about 224, right? Not quite completely blown out, so there's some detail in there. So if I bring the exposure down a little bit, let me see how far. See, if I bring it way down, you can see there's no detail in there. There really isn't. There's not much I'm going to be able to do. So I can bring down the exposure a little bit. Once here, I want to go to my shadow details. So instead of bringing the blacks down, I'm going to double click the blacks and bring those back up, right? Bring the blacks bright, because the reason why is because I'm going to use another command for blacks, right? And that command is dehaze. So dehaze is going to be my dark shadow restore slider. So if I pull to the left, it gives you haze. If I pull to the right, it dehazes it, bringing that detail. Look at it right back in. Lots of detail in these areas still there, but it brings in the richness. Okay. If I bring it back a little bit more, you can see I've sacrificed contrast for the midtones because I had brought up the shadows so high and brought down the shadows, so the highlights so low. So your midtone contrast is going to be clarity, right? Bring it to the left, it softens it up. Bring it to the right, it really brings up back a lot of detail, like so. So zooming in a little closer, again, these specular highlights are pretty much now David makes a let's see, Rick says, oh, I'm not okay, just good. Sorry, David says, so can at some point can you demonstrate how to import an external XMP? You basically copy and paste it, David. Your XMP file always sits right next to your actual file. And when you go to not Adobe Camera Raw, when you go to Lightroom to import your images in, Lightroom will automatically see that you have XMP files, and it will ask you, do you also want to import the data from the XMP file? You simply click the yes button. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Lightroom will do it automatically, but you just click yes, and it'll do it automatically from that point. Okay, so going back into Photoshop real quick. Let's go pull this back up. Now that I have my detail the way I want it, I've got I'm adding some clarity to kind of pull that sharpness in there. Then I'm going to go to my texture to add contrast to my highlights. See that? Let me zoom in closer. Texture. See, I'm going to double click to go. I'm sorry, it's clear. I'm going to keep clarity where it is. Double click the texture. Now, see what's happening there? It's contrast for the highlights only. Can't do anything about this highlight. It's blown out. You got to be careful how you expose everything with your sensor, because sensors, once you lose that detail, you're not going to get them back. So expose, make sure you have detail on those highlights. Now, I'm still thinking I can use more richness back here, right? So that's where I will come back to the blacks and probably play around with those a little bit, bring that down just a little bit more. Um, that's the extreme blacks I'm targeting. What if I go to shadows? Pull the shadows down. See, look at that shot, that background start to darken down a little bit. That's adding a nice separation from your fruit in the foreground, right? So now it might give me the ability to forward just a little bit more exposure higher. There we go, something like this. Yeah. Now we simply go to our saturation. Pull it up. Pull it up. Look at that. Look at how beautiful it's looking, and look at where the saturation slider is. That means you get a lot more information here in your file available to you. Why? Because it's not working in RGB. It is now working in LAB, lab. I don't talk about lab until the advanced class that I teach. Okay, but you can see here, what's happening. All right, so let me click done on that one. I didn't mean to click open. I'm going to click done on that one. I'm going to close it out. Cool. All right. And let's go back to another person's image very quickly. Okay, let's see. Let's go pick. This one looks like it could work. So I've got a JPEG there. And then the actual, this is the original. And this is the redone one. Let me open that up and just take a quick look at those settings. There we are, Adobe Camera Raw. Let's kind of pull it open a little bit so we'll see what we're doing. All right, let's pull out the saturation now. I can see its saturation's right about there. Good job. I'm going to pull it all out and take a look at this black and white image. All right, what more can be done? Let me take a look at this. I'm going to take a look at your blacks. That's your blacks. Look at your shadows. You brought your shadows down. I probably would bring them up like this. Bring them up just a little bit, because I'm going to go to the dehaze and see if I can pull in. There we go. See that water? Just separates it a little better back there. All right, clarity. That helps give it a little more snap. Textures for the highlights. Nice. All right, now what I will do is, let's see what the saturation does now. Yeah. Yeah, this is even, yeah, I'm even lower than where you were. I think yours was up a little bit, or was it about the same? But maybe mine may be a little bit lower than yours in terms of saturation, and already it's looking pretty good. Nice. So I'm trying to get everybody, the last week was focusing on editing your images, particularly looking at tone. Let's do one more. And if you have any questions, if you have a microphone and if it's working, Roseanne is here. Roseanne, I'll give you presenters rights so that if you want to use your microphone, you're welcome to. If your microphone is working, you can stop anytime and ask questions, or just type in the chat box. Portraits, please. Okay, Lillian says portraits. Let's see if anybody submitted a portrait. So far, I see landscapes. Let's go take a look at David's folder. He's got a bunch in here. Got some nice ones in it. Let's see if we can find a portrait. Don Roscoe. Eric. It's even ooh, we got portraits. All right. So if Lillian says portraits, we're gonna do portraits. So there we go. So that's a JPEG. Let's see. Where's any? I don't see an NEF file. So, but I'll work on this portrait here. Okay. It's a JPEG. That's fine. That's fine. You're most welcome, Lillian. I'm going to hit, it's a JPEG, which means if I double click it now, it's going to open up in Photoshop. It's not going to open up in Adobe Camera Raw. Adobe Camera Raw only opens for RAW files, but we can open a JPEG in Adobe Camera Raw. We hit Command or Control R, and it will open it up inside Adobe Camera. Oh, look at that. Isn't she so pretty? Okay, let's play. Let's bring out the saturation. Flat, isn't it? What else is going on here? Look at the hair. The hair is kind of blocked up with detail. The detail is blocked up because there's too much shadow in there, right? Too much shadow in that hair. So we'll come over here to the shadows, and I can add more shadow or pull it out so I can get detail. Look at that. Oh, look at that detail in that hair. Isn't that so beautiful? Okay, we've got detail in there. We'll inspect the rest of the print. Okay. All right. Okay, not bad. Now, the highlights, let's bring them down. Let's add a little more detail. So the brighter portions of her skin, and it will also work for these brighter areas for the background. I'll kind of take it up to there, like so. I will go to the highlights and bring them down. I look up how far I can bring it down. I don't want it that far. I want a little bit of a glow to her face. So I'm going to just add in about that much. How does that look? Lillian's going, yay! So, okay, we pulled out a lot of shadow. That's added a lot more detail. In fact, I'm gonna pull out a little more shadow, a little more, right about there. There we go. Okay. All right. Now, see, it's all the same rules, same concept. Learning to master your values. We get into the value-based workflow more in the advanced class. So what I'm showing you is a quick way to work this in Adobe Camera Raw. When we do the advanced class, I'll show you in Photoshop what you can really do. All right, now let's bring detail. We need rich black areas, right? Black areas of detail that adds depth to our image. So I'm not going to go to blacks. I'm not going to go to shadows. I'm going to go down here to dehaze, which is going to target the extreme shadow details. Pull it down, pull it down. Look at that. Look at that depth we're getting. Look at that. Nice. All right. Now portraits, especially for ladies, we often want them soft, the skin soft. So this is going to be up to the photographer to decide. But if you go over to clarity, clarity is your mid-tone contrast. So it's getting closer to her face here. If I pull that clarity over to the right, it's going to add some contrast, thus not giving the portrait a very appeal, especially for a lady. Maybe the ladies prefer more of a softness like this. See that? That softness, a nice softness there. And that works for the clarity. Bring it back. See, nice softer skin. Now, I will go to the texture. The texture is your contrast for highlights. If I pull it to the right, you can see you get more of a sharpened appeal. Or if I pull it to the left, it starts to soften it up even more. Get a nice little soft glow to that skin. So you see how I'm thinking hurricane prep. What is that? Oh, I see. Oh yeah, that's right. Roanne, you guys have a hurricane coming in. Well, that's tomorrow. Today we get to do Photoshop. So, There we go. See that? See how nice that looks? So now that I've done all that, I might take a look at my dehaze. Maybe I'll bring the shadows down a little bit more. There we go. That helped. That's taking me all the way over. I like the way this looks. Let's hit Command 0 to see the full thing. And let's go to saturation and look at that. Oh, wow. Look at that. Look at where I am. Look at that slider. Way over here. Look at the depth that we have in this piece. All right. Nice clean separation of colors. If I go a little bit more, maybe that's probably about as much as I want to go. All right. Cool. Now, was that helpful, Lillian? So we did a portrait. We did some nature shots. Okay. I'm going to click done on this one. Yeah, it's a little more of an interesting look. And of course, we can do some wild stuff with this. I mean, this can go crazy in terms of that value-based workflow. You can go crazy on these. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on these. We're going to run out of time. I'm going to go back. Faye has something in here that I don't know if she's here. I'll send her a little note later, but Faye has something. Let's see. I think it may be worth taking a look at. I'm thinking about this barn. Maybe the dog. What do you think? The dog? Dog is a good one. That's good, rich shadows, nice color. We got the sky. So I'm going to. She's got a CR2 file also. They both look the same. Now take a look at her dog. It's really strong. She's killed the shadow in here. So let's open this one up in Adobe Camera Raw and take a look at her settings real fast. So what do you do when you have portraits with nature behind? Would this be considered a portrait with nature behind, Lillian? This is definitely a portrait of a dog, and we got nature behind there. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to my crop tool, go to my rotation option to kind of even out that horizon. All right. Then I'll hit enter on the keyboard. And then I think what I'll do is I'm looking at her settings. And what's weird is that her setting, this is the raw file, the CR2 file, but what's weird is that her settings, she must have underexposed this shot because all the settings are 0. So she must have underexposed this. You want a human being? Okay, if I've got a human being with a shot back there, Lillian, let me see if I even have a human being with a shot. Let me click done for this one for the time being. Let's see if anybody brought a human being. Well, let's see. We got that with nature. Remember that when you're photographing human beings, oh, here we go. Yeah. Lillian didn't want to say she had some already. She's kind of like, pushed me into it. I'm thinking this may be a good one with nature behind. Maybe something like this. That would be a better one, huh? Okay. Yes. Lillian's giving me this big smile here, kind of like sucker. So that's a JPEG. Let's see if you put the raw file in here, that's a JPEG also. So you've got that one. You've got that one. I think this was the one that you cropped it a little bit there. Okay, that's cool. I don't see the raw file. That's fine. I'll work with the one that you cropped. Okay. So I'm going to hit Command R. This is going to require a little more work, especially in Photoshop. And I don't want to address it in Photoshop just yet. But here's your portrait. You got a lot of negative space up here, which does nothing for your portrait. And maybe a little too much negative space over to the right. So I'm going to go to my crop tool, and I'm going to take down that space just a little bit. Now I've got it constrained here. Can I unconstrain it? I'm not sure. No, I don't want to do that. Escape that. That works. Bring it down about there. That works a little better. All right, aspect ratio is locked. I'm going to unlock it and bring it down to here. I don't want to see the legs, so bring it up to there. Compositionally, I'm going to bring it to here. And to balance this out composition, that's about right. I think that's about right. I can teensy bit there, but that's about right. And hit enter on the keyboard. I see Lillian typing here on the chat box, so she's going crazy. There we go. So now, here we go. This is going to require, I may take a little bit of a time. Right. No problem. Okay, Rick's typing too. Okay, here we go. Let's take a look at this one. Let's take out the saturation. Pull it out. And immediately, you've got problems. And the problems are that your foreground information is brighter than your subject. Your background is brighter than your subject. Thus, the values are competing with them. Okay? I might want to pull out some detail on the darker values of a shirt. So I think what I would do is I'll start with the shadows and pull them up a little bit. See that? Pull them up just a little bit to get some detail there. Now, this requires more work than ACR. ACR is not going to be able to do exactly what you want to do. I can, time is all we have. Yeah, time is all we have. Right now we do. Oh my gosh. Have you guys noticed that since we've been on lockdown, you got a lot of stuff done that you never did before? You're finally getting stuff done. I'm going to go over to dehaze. Let's go address the lower values of the image. There we go. And this really needs more work. We need to put them on their own layer, and we need to bring the values of the background down. But I'm going to do what I can in Adobe Camera Raw. And this is what I'm going to do. I said I should have a brush in here. I should have a, let's see, where's my brush? That's spot removal. There's my adjustment brush. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. I'm going to take these values. I'm going to take the exposure way down. In fact, I'm really going to bring it way down. I'm going to take the highlights down, like so. Bringing detail on my sand. Bring exposure way down, like so. Contrast, which I told you guys never to touch, might work here because I want to flatten that. I just want to flatten it out. Really flatten that background. And then bring it down really low like this. Why am I doing that? Because I can go to my adjustment brush, and then as I come down here to the bottom, I can adjust my exposure. So I say I'm going to bring my exposure up high, and I'm going to start to paint. I'm going to hit my, on the right hand side of the P key in my keyboard, this is what you can do inside of Adobe Camera Raw. If I start to paint, I can bring them out. Right? I'm not going to do a stupendous job on this. I'm just showing you how to do it in ACR. This is the same technique you would use in Lightroom. Okay, I'm going to bring that up, bring that down a little bit. This is a bad paint job here, so I'll bring it up a little higher and bring them out, bring them forward. Okay. If I hold the Alt key, it takes away from what I've done. And I'm going to bring my brush smaller. Okay, there we go. I'm going to take away. I went too far over the edge. And now I'm going to paint back in what I want to keep. All right, so you see what I'm doing in the background? So with that adjustment brush in there. If I target done, crap, I didn't want to do that. What I meant to do is bring the color back in so you can see the difference, but you guys are getting the point. I want them to come out. I want the background to recede. We'll talk more about this later. This is all the time I'm going to spend on homework. We went over time. I'll give you guys more time for the what we're going to do today. Today we're going to be getting into masking, isolating localized images so that you can create alternative visions with your work. The whole idea of this class is going beyond the camera. Okay, and let me go to the root of Photocon Hawaii, and I've got some nice little images here I'm going to want to use. And this one, we're going to start with this one right here. Now, we're going to start talking about selections and masks. The key to mastering Photoshop is mastering selections. Selections, masks, and channels are all one and the same. Okay? All right, let's open this up in Photoshop. It's a JPEG, so I hit the enter key. It'll open it right in there. Now, we're going to use this to replace the sky. We're going to practice, this week we're going to practice on masking, isolating elements. And I'm going to show you some slick little ways to do this. I'm going to duplicate the layer, Command J. And the next thing I'm going to do is, I'm going to work in a black and white environment to isolate my subjects. If I go to the channels command, I have a red, green, and blue channel. Now, the goal here is to determine which channel separates the foreground and the background elements. Is it the red? Is it the green? Or is it the blue? If you look at the sky, if you look at the sky, it looks like the sky is pretty white here, but everything else is of a much more darker value. More so than green, where we're getting more contrast in the foreground to compete with the background, or red, which the same thing is happening. So blue seems to isolate that bluer sky from everything else a lot more effectively. Here's where it gets really, really fun. I'm going to duplicate that blue channel. I don't want to mess up my original color channels, or else I'm going to mess with the color of the image. Click and hold, drag it to that little plus icon to the left side of the garbage can, and that will create what's called an alpha copy. Okay? Let's click that there, and there is my alpha copy. I don't know why that's doing that. Okay. Now, I'm going to modify this. So the sky area is a better separation than everything else. I'm going to apply this image. I'm going to blend it with itself using a particular blend mode. Now let me explain blend modes like this. Go to my layers. I'm going to make a brand new layer. I'm going to make a system of grays, my 256 possible shades of gray in Photoshop. Hit my gradient tool with the G key on the keyboard. My foreground and background color is black and white, so I'm going to make a gradient based on the foreground and background color. When I hit the G key for gradient up here in my toolbar, if I click this here, it's going to show me what I've got, what I'm going to do, from black to white. If this is not in your foreground and background color is not showing on your palette, go up here where it says My Gradients, drop it down. Actually, I think under Basics, drop it down and grab that first one right there. That means foreground and background. Under the Basics tab, My Gradients is your custom gradients that you saved. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to make a gradient. So hold the Shift key down, drag all the way to the other side, and we're going to understand how and why layer blend modes work. And you're going to be amazed. And then you're going to wonder, you're going to tell Rick, now why didn't you have Steve show us this before? I had to poke fun at Rick. So here we go. 256 shades of gray. Okay. on the screen. So what do these blend modes do? Your blend modes are accessed. All layers have a set of blend modes, the same blend modes. By default, they're normal. That means you see the normal paint on a transparent layer above all your other layers here. The paint in this case is values, black, medium gray, and brighter values. If I drop this down, you see everything is divided up into sections. There's a reason why. So, so if I go to darken, the darken section will have one thing in common. All of them will have one thing in common. Maintain your darker values and make everything go transparent to see to the image below it. Multiply. Maintain the darker values, the medium grays and the whites go transparent. Color burn. Maintain your darker values, medium gray and highlights go transparent. The further you go down the list, the harsher it applies it. Does that make sense? Maintain your darks and medium grays go transparent. Now, if this darken section maintains your darker values, then your lighten section is going to do the exact opposite. Maintain your brighter values only. Lighten maintains the whites, everything goes transparent. Light screen maintains the whites, medium grays and darks go transparent. Maintains the lights again, but notice the further down the list you go, the harsher it applies it, but it maintains the brighter values, medium grays and shadows go transparent. Now, if darken preserves your darker values, the lighten section preserves your lighter values, the next section is going to preserve both your lights and your darks and make your medium grays go transparent. Overlay, for instance, to before and after. The medium grays go completely transparent in the middle, seeing the landscape naturally, but you can see the edges go slightly dark and slightly brighter. Next one is soft light. Does the same thing, but subtler. Before and after, before and after. The next one is hard light. Gives you a stronger effect and shows you pretty much easily what's happening. Maintains your darker values and your lighter values. Everything else goes transparent. If I go down to the next one, which is going to be my vivid light, you see, it's the further down list you go, the harsher it applies it. See? Just like the other two sets of blend modes. So in essence, darken is going to richen up your richer detail. Lighten is going to brighten up your brighter details. Overlay section is going to add contrast to your image, making your blacks blacker, whites whiter, and not touching your midtones at all. Does that make sense? Okay, now, why is this important? Let's delete this layer. All right, what I'm going to do is, what we've done is we've had blend modes which is applied to a gradient. If I apply a blend mode to this, you can see what's going to happen. Darken, color burn, linear burn, and I'm applying this image against itself. If I go down to lighten, you see it gets brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter because it's affecting the brighter areas in the image and not the midtones or the shadows, only the brighter areas. Overlay affects blacks and whites. So we go to overlay, look what happens. Contrast, darker blacks, brighter whites, softer, subtler, hard light, vivid light, linear. Okay, is that all making sense? So it's basing its calculations based on values. Now let's do a practical application of this. Let's go back to the channels. Let's go back to the blue copy. I want to create a mask. The goal here is to take out this sky and replace it with another sky. Now what I could do is go to the selection menu and go, so put a selection and do all this and get in there. And if I want to, I can go to the Q key on the keyboard to go to quick mask and then, paint in, let's see, paint in what I want to paint. I want to go to my brush because the quick mask requires that you use a brush. Oops, I hit the B key for the brush. There we go. Now, let's go and make this bigger. Okay. And I can paint with the quick mask like so and hit the Q key again on the keyboard for quick mask, and that'll go back to my selection mode. The key to mastering Photoshop is mastering selections. Selections, masks, and channels are all exactly the same thing. All right. Now, I'm going to get rid of those selections. Let's go back to our channels. Go back to our blue copy. Instead of using the selection to select it out, all the detail already exists right here in this channel. So why not use that channel to produce your selection? If the key to mastering Photoshop is mastering selections, and if selections, masks, and channels are all the same thing, shouldn't I be able to do something with this alpha channel to make a selection? Yeah, we could. Well, we're going to use a command called, under the image menu, apply image. And what apply image is going to do is apply this image to itself as whatever blend mode that we choose. If I target the image apply image command, by default, it gives you a multiply blend mode. So I'm taking this black and white image, applying it to itself, a multiply blend mode, and I'm going to click OK because it's working pretty well. So in other words, it brought all the values down for the landscape area, but it still kept my skies fairly bright in comparison. Now I'm going to do it again. Image menu, apply image, and as you can see, the multiply is not going to work here. What might work? Well, this darkens the image down, right? Screen brightens those brighter areas up. That's probably too much brightening. But overlay adds contrast, soft light, hard light. That adds a little more contrast. So it starts to push the blacks down and pull the whites out. So it's creating an effective mask. All right, let's do this again. It's doing a good job. So I'm going to do it one more time. Or it may be a couple of times. Apply image. There we go. Blacks are blacker, whites are whiter. Do it again. There. Much better. Last thing I'm going to do now is do it one more time, but this time tell it not to go give it more contrast, but instead go to my screen to make those whites brighter. See? There. Now if you want to, you can do it again just to really make the whites brighter and click OK. There's your mask. Not completely, but it's mostly there. So I want the foreground black. I want the background white. I can see a little bird there. I can still see a little bit of clouds. Very close over to here. If I zoom in a little bit, you can see a little bit of values for the clouds. No big deal. But here's the trick. I'm going to create a brush. I already have a brush, right? So I'm going to set up my Wacom pen so that my brush is going to resize in Photoshop. I'm gonna go right over here, and I think we did this last week, but I'll do it as a reminder. that in my Wacom properties, I'm using a Wacom pen, and we will be using a Wacom pen in the upcoming um, um, Photoshop class with the Wacom tablet in the second week in August. I'm going to click this plus here. Target Photoshop is open. And the pen that I'm using has 3 buttons on it. So I'm gonna use that middle button here to resize my brush. The shortcut to resizing my brush in the PC is Alt right click. So I'm gonna go to the modifier, Alt right click, done. That's the middle button. So that when I hold that middle button down and hover above the pad, right to left makes it bigger and smaller, down for hard, up for soft. And I'm only using one hand. It's kind of nice. All right. So, what I'm going to do is in this brush, I'm going to set the blend mode. Even with the brush, I can set the blend modes for my brushes in Photoshop. Look up here, right on the options bar for my brush is targeted here, and on the options bar for my brush, because all tools in Photoshop has options. If I drop it down, I'm going to target overlay. What does overlay do, guys? It targets your blacks and your whites only and avoids your midtones. Keep that in mind. If I click OK, watch what I can do. If I paint with black onto black, I'm going to get a little closer. It'll darken the blacks and avoid the whites. Watch. It darkens the blacks and avoids the whites. Look at the ocean here. I'll bring down the brush size a little bit. Bring it down a little bit more. Okay. See that there? Avoids the whites. If I need to make the whites whiter, hit the X key, the paint with white while still in overlay mode, and it'll brighten the whites and avoid the darks. There's a nice, clean, quick way. Hit the X key to go to black. See? Now, I may not do a perfect job on everything, but the whole idea is to get the edges so I can go in with the lasso tool. See that edge of that water there? I can paint it in with black. There we go. If it's starting to get a little dark in the white areas, switch the X key to white, and it'll clean up that white. Isn't that nice? So, so what I'm going to do is, it's mostly done. So I'm going to go to my lasso tool, because the goal here is to have my foreground to be black, but my background to be white. I'm going to come right over here very quickly. Let me hit my B key for my brush again. It's in overlay mode. I'm going to make sure I paint with black, just to clean that up there. Hit the X key to go to white. Make sure that stays white. X key to go to black. X key to go to white. And it avoids the blacks. Now, if I want to perfect it, L key for the lasso tool. Key to mastering Photoshop is mastering selections. And I'm going to draw a little selection over this broad area. I don't want to waste any time. Oops, I'm clicking too many times. I don't want to waste any time. Just grab this broad area, bring it across, and then all the way down on the bottom, and then fill that with black. I can go to Edit menu, fill it, right? And when I get the dialog box, Contents, I'm going to fill with black. Done. All done. So I've got some areas up here I missed. No big deal. Don't waste time. Now, you could use a brush, but it's just faster to take that lasso these large areas out real quick. Cool. Fill with the background is Command Backspace. Fill with the foreground is Option or Alt Backspace or Delete. So I'm going to use the Command Backspace there right on my keyboard. Use my shortcuts. It saves time. Come over to here. Take a look at these. I might just quickly select some of these areas out. just to get most of this in black. Command or Control backspace, fill with the background color. Command D to get rid of the selections. And I'm going to kind of select this little edge in here. Fill with the black. Done. There it is. There's my mask. One area I missed up here, you probably saw it. It's the little bird. Can you see the bird up here? A little bird flying up there. So I can just quickly, just to make sure everything's targeted, I can just bring this all the way around close to the, select all the outside and fill it with white. That's it. That's it. So we're just using black and white information. If you want to be really anal about it, you can always blend itself, right? Image, apply image, just to make sure, and just to make sure this is in overlay blend mode. So it looks like nothing's happened because it's already good to go. Now, white reveals and black conceals. The goal here is to knock out the sky. The goal here is to keep the landscape, but knock out the sky. I'm getting a little closer and I'm noticing I missed some ocean areas right in here. B key for the brush. Hit the X key to switch my foreground and background. Making sure overlay mode is on and just let it do its thing like that. We're done. That's all the time I'm going to put into it. All right. If I want my foreground color to remain, or the foreground objects to remain, I want that to be white. So I want the white where the black is and the black where the white is. So the inverse command, I think somebody posted a question here. So David says, would this same process work with trees? Don't worry, we got trees coming, David. That's all in the tutorial coming up. If I take this and inverse it, the shortcut is Command I. I'm on my alpha channel. Command I, done. The key to mastering Photoshop is mastering selections. Selections and masks are the same thing. If that's true, I should be able to make a selection from this mask. The shortcut is Command or Control key on the keyboard. Click right here on the icon of the black and white image. Boom. The marching ants are now there. It's hard for you to see, but they're there. If I go to the RGB mode, see, there's some marching ants. Marching ants around the whole image. And all I need to do is go to the layer and then tell it to apply a layer mask, which will take this blue copy and place it inside the layer mask. Third icon from the left, right there, target the mask. It did it. Look at this. Black will conceal, white will reveal the image it's attached to. Did it work? Yes, it is. Yes, it did. You just got to turn off the background image. Boom. There it is. Now you've got transparent layer, and look how clean that is. Look how clean that is. We created a selection based on the information already in your channels, which means every crevice, every detail, every little edge detail has been honored. Now, what can we do? We can go and get another sky. So, Shift Command O. And let's see, I've got some sky images in here. There we go. I got lots of sky images in here. Maybe we'll go grab maybe something like that. All right. So if I push this down a little bit to see the image, so I can see Photoshop behind it, and click and hold on the icon and drag it on Photoshop, it'll bring it in automatically as a smart object. So there it is. So it brings it up in Adobe Raw first. Just click OK, and it will put it in there. And there it is. It's in a layer on top of everything. So Command 0 pops everything to full view. Hit Enter to get out of transform mode, and just drag this underneath the layer with the mask, and there it is. Clean. Right? If I want, it's a smart object. I can make it bigger. Command T. Make it a little larger. Place it wherever I want. And hit Enter. And if we get in close, it's clean. Now, I want to talk about these edges here. You can see almost a very slight halo. I want to address that next. So I'm going to give you a little more time today. We'll go to 2:30 because we spent practically 30 minutes going over homework. So I thought it would be wise to take a 5-minute break. Was it 2:11? I'll say come back at about let's say 2:20. How about we say a 10-minute break? Come back at about 2:20. Take a bathroom break, snack break, and then I'm going to pause the recording. Good, Eric. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, VPNs cause problems. You're trying to block out everything, and then that's just gonna be a bandwidth load for you. All right, so we did a successful mask using this technique of using your channels to create masks from. Now, if you notice, it did a pretty good job, but it left a little bit of a problem, right? Left a little bit of a problem in that you've got this little edge issue there. Okay, and you can see what that edge issue is a result of the background coming through from the original image. All right, let's get Photoshop to stop acting up here. Lost my image. Let's go bring it back. Command 0. There we are. Okay. Zoom in closer. Okay. Now, I'm going to do this instead. Let's look at these edges. Let's find out why we are getting these halos. Let's understand what we've done in masking. These highlights along these edges is a result of your mask. If I hold the Alt key or the Option key and click on the mask that's connected to this layer here, it will show the mask. This is why we're getting that edge, right? So if I hold the Shift key and turn off the mask, it shows the background. It puts an X on the mask. So Shift click on the mask, puts an X on the mask. If I click it again, it takes away the mask to show this the new sky that I put behind it, but it's also showing these edges here. All right, let me share how to handle it this way. We have a tool in Photoshop, which is the mask. What's it called here? I'm forgetting what it's called. With the mask targeted, we go to our selection tool. We have the select and mask option. I prefer that you don't use it. I know a lot of Photoshop instructors out there told you to use select and mask. Select and mask is buggy and slow. So I'm going to show you a really super fast way to handle it. And it's going to be a way to handle it that you're going to understand why Photoshop does what it does. Okay? Now, I'm going to target the mask. And before I do anything, I'm going to show you how this works. I'm going to make a new file. New. And 5 by 5 inch at 200 ppi. I'm just going to open up a standard square file. I'm going to add a layer to the top of this white background. Next, I'm going to add a gradient of black and white information. So I'm going to hit the D key on the keyboard, which will default the black to the foreground, the white to the background. The G for the gradient tool. On my options bar, it already shows my black to white option. Hold down the shift key as I drag from the far left hand edge all the way to the right edge, and it creates my gradient. What am I going to do? We're gonna massage these values like pastels onto newsprint paper. So if we take black chalk or black pastel and make a nice line on the paper, and then take our hands and smear the pastel, we're going to learn to smear these values around artistically. How do we do that? Well, if I hit Command L or Command or Control L, it brings up my levels command. My levels is showing me the nature of the histogram of this gradient pattern. Absolute black, medium 256 possible shades of gray, medium gray, until it becomes absolute white. Now, everybody should already understand how to use levels and how to read levels. So blacks, midtones, highlights. If I want my black tones, which are right here, to encroach on top of my midtones and highlights, I take the black slider and I bring it on over. See? Now it's matching the position of dominating midtones and highlights. If I bring it back, I can do the same thing for the highlights. Go to the highlight slider and dominate the midtones to encroach on over to the shadows. See? Now wherever this little point ends up, that's where the clipping for the highlights happen. Is that making sense? Now, well, what else can we do? Midtone is a medium, right? I can go to my midtone, the middle area, the medium gray middle area, go to my midtone slider, and I can shift that midtone to the left or take that midtone and shift it to the right. Okay, just keep all this in mind because I'm going to show you the practical application. Now, I can, instead of a nice gradient, I can make a line, or what we consider closer to the line. Bring the blacks over, bring the whites closer to the blacks, and I'm starting to get kind of like a fairly thick line here, right? And within this thick line, I can shift my midtones. I can shift them. If I bring the line closer together, it's a thinner line. And still, I can go to my midtones and I can shift them within that space. If I bring them really on top of each other, midtones go away and leaves me with black and white. I'm going to click OK. So I've got solid black and solid white right here. Now, what if I want those midtones to come back? Don't say undo either. The answer is going to be Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. And I can Gaussian blur it enough to get those midtones back the way that I want them. Now, when I click OK and hit Command L for curves, there are my midtones. They've come back in here. All right. So what? How do we apply this stuff? How does this work in real photography? All right. Let's go back to our image. Let's close this out. This is where the magic begins. Why do we have this edge? Because of that mask. What is the nature of that mask that we have that edge? Oh, click on the mask. Hard edge. How do we get rid of the hard edge? Filter, blur, Gaussian blur. Too much. Bring it back down to small. See? See? I'm adding some midtone to that edge. All right, let me let you see it practically and within color. Oh, click on the mask. We're on the mask. We're not on the image. Blur the mask. Filter menu, blur, Gaussian blur. Okay? Way too much. Bring it back. Tighten it up. See that little soft, feathery edge there? It's taking its own sweet time to respond here in Photoshop. There we go. That's it. I just want a slight little blur, just slightly. Maybe I'll go back a little closer to the edge. See, just that. I want to maintain that shape, right? I want to maintain that shape all the way across. Now click OK. Now that I have the mid-tone, which is giving me a little bit of a wider area in there to show the original sky that the mask had blocked out. Remember, we're on the mask. We're editing the mask. Command or Control L for levels. Remember? I can shift the midtones. Pull it to the left, right? It gets stronger, gets bigger. Pull it to the right. See? Feather be gone. You can shift it. And you can even take the blacks and make it even tighter. See, now it's completely gone. Click OK. Command minus a little bit. See? Clean. Clean. Nothing there. There is no excuse why your work should have a halo over anything. See that? Is that helpful? All right, let's go to another image. We played around with this one enough. Let's close it out. Command W, that's the shortcut for close. Now I'm going to go back to Bridge, Command Shift O. And if I remember correctly, I'm going to go back to my presentations folder, to the root of Hawaii, and I put in some new images in there. And let me go find them real quick. There's one there, but there's another one I think will be really handy. There's that one right there. We want to replace the sky. Whoa, this is going to be a lot of work. A lot of selections going in there. Nope. Lillian says, that's cool. Thanks, Lillian. Somebody appreciates me. Just kidding, guys. Okay. All right. So now I do. Rick says he does too. Okay. Don says he does too. Great. That would be good for my ego. All right. Let's open that up. Let's hit the enter key, open it up in Photoshop, and let's apply the same technique here. Duplicate the layer, Command J. Okay. Now, let's go get our channel. Hit the F key to go to full screen mode so I can move around here. Remember, the F key gives you your 3 different window modes. You don't want to be working in black. You want to be working in this full screen mode without that annoying menus up there. All right, so here, duplicate the layer, go to your channels. Red, green, or blue. Which one separates this trestle from the background the best? Red, green, or blue? Red, we say no, because we got highlights all through it that starts to take on the nature of the sky back there. So I want a nice, go to green. That's better. That's much, much better. That could work, but let's test out blue. That even brought down the values, deeper values everywhere else but in the sky. That's going to work the best. So I'm going to duplicate the blue channel. There it is. Blue channel is now duplicated. Now, Command 0, bring it out so you can see everything. Image, apply image. Image menu, apply image. And it went back to overlay, which is the last one that I did before we went to this image. Let me see what multiply will do. I think overlay works fine. If I go to hard light, see what it does. And overlay works fine. There. I'm going to do the same thing. Image menu, apply image there. Good. Overlay, whites are getting whiter, blacks are getting blacker. Image, apply image again. Boom. Okay. Now this time, I'm going to go to image, apply image and tell it, since the whites are pretty white anyway, now I'm going to go over to multiply and say really darken everything up. And there it is. Almost there. I'm going to apply again. There we go. That's even better. That really brought these dark areas down. Now I think what I'll do is I'll go back over to apply image, image, apply image. That works even better, but I'm thinking about going over the overlay again to make the whitest whiter, dark, dark. That works there. Now I'm going to go to my brush. Before I go to the brush, image, apply image, image, apply image, screen to really make the whites pop out, which I think they're already fine. Okay, that was just a test to make sure stuff pops out. B key for the brush, right? Overlay, blend mode, black. It will darken everything down. You can just go over and it'll darken. It won't even touch the whites. It won't even touch the whites. Look at this. It won't even touch the whites. If I switch the X key and make sure everything's going to be white in blend mode of overlay, none of the blacks are going to be touched. There we go. That looks good. Done. Now, you got these little areas in here you need to touch up on too, right? So I can either do one of two things. Take the brush, change it to normal blend mode, and if I paint with black or white, it'll absolutely paint with black or white. I meant to paint with black in this one. And it'll just take it out. Or, so you take it all out, just paint it in, just like this. I'm going to go to a harder edge brush on this one, because the edge of the train is pretty solid. And just wipe it clean, wipe it clean, wipe it clean, real quick. Or take the lasso tool, right? It's all your choice. All right, bring it down to here. Bring it down a little more. And I get all these little speckly areas in here. I might just hit the lasso tool. Just lasso it, right? Don't waste time with it. Lasso it out. Fill it with the foreground color, which is black. Done. And that's it. That's all we need to do. So what do we want to keep and what do we want to discard? We want to get rid of the sky and keep the trestle, which means the trestle needs to be in white because we're going to um, um, reveal it, and then the black areas will conceal the sky. So Command I, just like that. Go to my layers. Now, once in my layers, I need the selections, right? So go back to your blue copy, Command click right here to get the marching ants. The key to mastering Photoshop is mastering selections. Your marching ants are there. Hit the mask. Boom. Turn that off. Look at that. Clean. Really clean. Cool, isn't it? Look at that. Look how clean that is. So that's a nice little way with working with your photographs. If you can see that your channels are showing that you can clearly, use that to create your selections around your objects, that is, this is really handy. So now if I decide to go over to Bridge, let's go get another sky. I've got a bunch of skies in here. I can grab any of these skies. I'll grab that one there, okay? I'll just pull this down a little bit and drag and drop it right onto the image. And click OK. Cool. And I will bring it down below the trestle. See? Look at that. Clean. Super clean. Okay. Let it finish thinking there. So it's a beautiful little technique. So you need to practice this quite a bit. This is going to take practice. Let's finish thinking here, and then it'll come back. So let me take a look at any questions down here. So Linda Sue says, awesome. Now we're going to go and do some more stuff. Let's, there we go. All right, now pull this down a little more. Command T, right? Hold the Shift key to distort it. There it is. See that? Really, really clean. So everything should look like it's been integrated very well together, as if we shot it with the same image. The background color is a little bit red compared to the foreground. So we go to the foreground image, and the way we color correct is like this. I'm going to use an adjustment layer. An adjustment layer will affect all layers underneath it. The adjustment layer I'm going to choose is going to be called, it's going to be a curves. Okay, standard curves. Pull this up over here so we can see this. So curves adjust your contrast, right? Brightness, darkness. I can come here and increase contrast. It's affecting all layers underneath it. Now, I don't want to affect all layers. I only want to affect the top layer. So, pull this off. The way you do that is target the adjustment layer, put your cursor in between your top adjustment layer and the layer underneath it that you want it to affect. Hold the Alt or Option key. It takes on that symbol with the square, with the arrow pointing downward, with the square on the right hand side. With the Alt or Option key held down, tap in there, and now it will adjust only for this one. So if I go to my curves command, it affects only that foreground image. Now, what are we doing here? You're going to use your curves to do color correction. Red, green, and blue colors. And we got 3 channels, RGB, red, green, blue. This one requires a little more red. The background is a lot redder and probably a lot more oranger than the foreground color, than the foreground layer. So I'm going to go right over here to my properties panel because I double clicked on the curve symbol here for the adjustment layer. And you have RGB together, which affects your tones, right? If you want to affect individual colors, you drop it down, red, green, or blue. Target the red color, and let's push in. I'm going to go to the mid-tone area. So I can adjust the reds and shadows, mid-tones, or highlights. So if I push this up a little bit, see, that's really red. I don't want that much red, just a little bit red, just a little bit red, so it matches what's going on in that background. Is that helpful? Okay. Let's go to another image. Let's go with something with some, so Lillian says yes. All right. Now, we're going to be using mask to isolate all these subjects. So I'm going to Command W, take it out. And let's go get another image. I think I saw one. Could do that one. The shot I did in Yosemite. Or, you know what? Let's do the one with the hair. I think the hair is important. I think if we do this one here, that's pretty self-explanatory. I'll just open it up just real quick so I can just walk through it super fast. Self-explanatory, right? So go to my channels, red, green, or blue. Is that telling you which one works best? It's going to be that blue channel again. Apply your layer blend modes, right? So if I duplicate that, image, apply image, right? I don't want screen. What about if I go to multiply? that deepens down all the stuff in the foreground area. Now, image, apply image once again. We go over here to like overlay to start adding contrast to this. See how it's separating out? I think you guys get the point from here, right? All you would need to do next, go to apply image, and then apply, instead of overlay, apply a screen to brighten up these brighter areas up here. And then apply your brush and overlay mode to clean up these edges. Everything else is going to go black. Okay, I'm not going to work this all the way through. I think you guys get the point. But what I am going to do is I'm going to get the one with the hair. How do we deal with hair? So we have a Lillian who loves to do portraits. Of course, we have to appease Lillian because Lillian does lots of portraits. Let me bring the properties panel over here. I'm going to attach it to the bottom right there. So I always have it handy. And here's our layer. Command J. Duplicate the layer. Always a good way to work. This is going to be fun. We're going to let Photoshop do most of the work. F key to go to full screen mode. Bring it on over. I'm going to use a selection tool called the quick selection tool. Select it. And all I'm going to do now, this is what we used to do. What we used to do was select this, get most of the portrait in the hair, and then we tell Photoshop to go find the hair. All right, so Command D. Here's an easier way. While in this tool, go up to the top here to the options bar and hit the button that says Select Subject. Click it. Bang, it did it for you. So you don't have to do anything anymore. Look at the shoulders. Shoulders are pretty accurate. Yep, got most of the hair. Found the subject. Let's bring this down a little more. Now, once we have the subject, this is one of the few cases that Select the Mask is absolutely outstanding at. Other than that, I don't like Select the Mask, but I love selecting mask. I love selecting mask for this next technique. We go over to Selection, Select the Mask. And it takes you into a whole nother panel. So, up here at the top, it's going to give us a viewing mode. We can view this on onion skin, marching ants, overlay, black and white, or on black, on white, black and white as the mask, or on a layer. I'm going to do it on black. It doesn't do anything. It's just giving you a viewing mode. The opacity of your background is controlled with the opacity slider here. See? No black, to black. I want full black. All right, I'm missing some tools in here. I'm missing my brush panel tool. I don't know why. And I believe if I go to the Windows Workspace, Reset, select the mask, and there are my tools, just appeared. I'm going to pull them out so they can float here with me so we can see them together. Now, what we need to do is target Smart Radius and then give it a radius. So currently, if I pull this all the way down like so, this is going to show my original selection. If I show the edge, remember my viewing properties, they don't do anything. They're just giving you a visual assessment. Click on the edge. There's no edge. So Photoshop knows to keep this in here. It knows to mask out the black areas, but it doesn't know how much in between the two to select. We need to give it an edge. That's what the radius does. We pull the radius over with Smart Radius turned on a little bit, turn on the show edge, and there's my edge. I'm going to click it off for now, and I'm going to say I really wanted to detect this edge, so I'm really going to pull it out, and it starts to look for the hairs along that edge. Again, making sure Smart Radius is turned on. Now, we're going to help it to do a better job. Right over here, you have a brush in this panel, not the top one. That's your selection brush. You want this one. What is that called? That is called technically the. It's not coming up. Come on, guy, come up here. I believe that's going to be your Smart Radius tool, edge detection tool. It's right, the very first one. And watch what happens when I paint. It's detecting the edges of the hair and taking away all the inside white background, taking it away, and it does a better job. I'm gonna go to the other side of his hair, of her hair, I should say, and I'm gonna make a bigger brush. The bracket key is to the right of the P key, this bracket to the right, and just paint it and decide what to keep and what to go away. There we go. See that? And then come up here, grab the rest of that. If I do it again, it tries to do an even better job. Okay, there we go. The feather and smoothing is actually looking at the edges of your mask and say feather it like that or smooth it out, which I'm not going to use either of those. But there's some situations where you might use it. So at the bottom here, what do I want to output? I want to output a new layer with a layer mask. Click OK. Turn off your, there it is, new layer with the layer mask. Turn off your background. Look, clean. It's not perfect. Let's say some of these areas could be masked a little better. You can do one of two things. Duplicate the layer or go into the mask and paint into the mask. Paint white into the mask, like right in here. Let's put a new layer underneath it, okay? And that new layer, we're going to put like this bright green. I'm going to grab a green and fill that there so we can see exactly where the green bleeds through. So for example, it's bleeding through kind of close to the dense area of her hair. We can edit the mask, paint with white to bring back her, oops, I want to make sure I have the paintbrush selected with the B key. Paint with white, see, to bring back her original hair. See? It bleeded in too much, I can take it away here, here. Now you have that ability, or duplicate the layer. Command J. See, the edges get stronger again and again. As many times as you need to tighten up those edges. Oops. Right? And once you duplicate them, select them all, shift selected, top one selected, shift select the bottom one, and then right click, merge all layers together. Like that. And now, if you want to work with portraits for compositing, you will, this is a good tool to use. Refine Edge tool. Thanks, David. Okay, so um, let's work with some other examples because next week we're going to, and I want to show you what we're going to get into next week. We're going to be getting to actually compositing the stuff together. Once we kind of learn how to use the selection tools, learn how to mask things out individually or globally, we're going to start pulling it all together. I'm going to close this one out. And let's take a look at you know what? This is what I'm thinking of doing. Taking one of the videos that I actually did for promotion, showing you how I built those up. I think that will be a good example. And let's take a look at completed images. See dynamic video integration. Let's take a look at these. Okay, I want to talk about these images real quick here. Let me find my composited completed images. Hawaii Photocon. Let me just do this here real quick so I can. Okay, so here's the folder. Um, this is one of the examples I use for promoting the class on how we can take selected objects and use our creativity to pull something together. So here are all the initial JPEGs. I'm going to go ahead and kind of and maximize it so you can take a look at it. And then I'll go in and I'll start building something. Now this one should look familiar to you. I use this for our creating a selection from our channels. So, but I decided to take a piece of this image, select it, and take a piece of it and use it for my composition. And I only use that one piece. And I'm going to go to, I use the skies, a standard blue sky, put behind it. In front of it, in its own layer, I place this object. You can see I just cut it out. I enlarged it. I put some water details in front of it. All right, that's going to represent my kind of the base of the image. And I'm always thinking about composition. Whenever I'm creating with a composite, I'm thinking about telling a story, going beyond the camera to tell a story. We're not just throwing images together to try to make something look cool. We have a concept in mind. And this concept was to create these cliff formations that gives you this sense of great depth. So I added the same image in. I just kind of enlarged it and flipped it a little bit. I cut it up a little bit using a mask, put another one in back. And I put one more in back, again, cutting up the same image, resizing it. Then I started to mess with what's called atmospheric haze. We're going to be doing a lot of this next week. And as we start to pull our images together and create a composite, we're also going to start talking about how to add that atmospheric haze to it. Then I apply the atmospheric haze to the other one, but understanding how atmospheric haze works. That's all part of telling your story. You're trying to tell a story. It's got to look right. So as things come closer to the camera, the more contrast it's going to gain. The more detail you're going to change, you're going to gain. The further it gets away from the camera, the less detail, the less color, the less contrast, and it starts to actually become the same tone and color of the overall background light. Let's see here. There we go. Let's go back to this one, maximize it. Go to the next one. I'm adding more atmospheric haze to the next one. Again, giving us a nice sense of depth. Foreground, middle ground, background. Composition is important here. Now I decided to, if we go back to the other one, I decided to add a little bit of a highlight, which is what you would see if the sun is coming from the back there. But you're also going to see a little bit of a fog haze or atmospheric haze in some of these areas, low level haze. As I go forward again, you can see as I'm starting to add, I'm going to show you how to create a brush that's going to create that. Okay. As I go forward, you can see I'm just adding more haze, but again, utilizing a separate layer. So the haze is all being put on their own separate layers, utilizing a blend mode called lighten. As we go forward, I'm adding more haze on yet another layer, which really gives us this nice, soft, hazy effect, right? Okay, so we keep working it, we keep building on it. This is how well, let me finish this up and I'm going to show you how to get inspiration. Go forward, adding the sunlight, the sun flare from the sunlight, and then adding the thing that's going to tell the story the best. So I not only added in the ship, but I added in a little bit more of a stronger haze coming into the foreground. That helps tell the story. So when I'm creating a composite, or when we create a composite, you're trying to tell a story so that when you look at it, it looks like it was shot with a single camera. And it looks like no compositing was done. Of course, you can kind of see the compositing done here, but you don't want it to look like it. You don't want it to be screaming out, oh, I know he did that, and he used this tool to do that. You can tell. You want to be able to kind of blend it together more effectively. Okay. We're almost done. We got 15 minutes left. I wanted to give you 30 minutes extra time. Okay, so as we go forward, I'm going to show you some ways I get inspired, and I highly recommend you guys work this way as well. For example, maybe I'll put in here landscape concept art with atmospheric haze. And I click enter. And then I go to images. I'm on Google. I go to images, click images, and then I look at this. And all of everything that you see here is done in Photoshop. Look at that. All of this is done in Photoshop. Look at that example. Look at this. All of it is done in Photoshop. Look at how lighting is being utilized here. Lighting is everything. As photographers, we should have an intuitive understanding of lighting already. What direction is coming from and how that lighting is going to affect your subject. Take a look here. We talked about the foreground and background. See how the background, the further it goes back, the less color, less contrast, the less detail, and the more it fades in with the actual color of that background haze back there. As you come forward, you gain a little more detail, a little more contrast, sharper, and then it gives you this whole sense of depth. Another composition for giving you depth is that river there, the highlight on the river. This whole thing's a river here, but the highlight is what leads your eye into that scene. This is all done with photographs, guys. Here's another example. Concept art piece, all done with photographs. See how in the foreground is very sharp, middle ground is less sharp, more hazy, and even more hazy back here with less sharpness, less contrast, less color. So if you start to apply some of these concepts to your work, using photographic imagery to blend. Look at how they utilize haze, foreground information. All types of ways to use lighting. Let's go to this one here. Look at that. Just using photographs, composite them together, but they understand lighting and they use the brush to bring in the fog. They use selections to cut out mountains so it looks like they're edgy. They found a sunset, put it behind the mountain, then took a brush to paint in this flare effect coming across here, coming around down the sides. Right? Here is another example using photographs, but as composites. Now, you probably won't create in this particular genre like sci-fi or something, but all the techniques here are what you should be using when you're going beyond the camera. Let's look at another example. There's one there. All right. Cut out a person out of a photograph, put them in here, but made them part of the scene. All right. So we're looking at these to inspire you as to what you might like to do. So for homework, this is your homework. This is more of a painting here, but and so is that one. But it gives you ideas. Your homework is I want you to create for me a composite. I want you to choose. I want a single composite. I'm not going to work you guys to death here. I just want you to create a single composite, and in that composite, I want to see if I want to see compositional elements in the story, and the composite has to have a foreground, middle ground, and background. It has to have a sense of depth. I'm not expecting you to put in atmospheric haze because we haven't really gone over it yet. But pull the composite together the best that you can and do it on your own because that's going to tell me where you're at. Okay? Where you're at skill wise. And just have fun with it. Come on to Google, get inspiration from other artists, decide on what you're going to create, and just pull it together. Use the layers, pull it together. Use your selections, use your masking techniques for making selections, and always have a story. What is the primary point of focus? Think about your composite as if it's you're going to shoot it with a single camera and you're composing a concept. What is my primary point of focus? What is my background going to be? The background should not compete with your focus subject. The foreground helps lead your viewer's eye into the scene, but yet it does not compete with your focus subject, right? So having the river right here is a great leading into your scene, but it doesn't compete with the focus subject. All right, so you guys think you can do that? I'm looking at the chat box, so refined edge tool. Yes. Yep, just try your best. You've always got YouTube at your available to you. If there's any techniques that you think you might want to pick up while you're creating this process, because the best way to learn this is to do my 5-week class where we really get into this. We break it down to smaller details, and it's more hands-on. You're most welcome. All I ask is that you don't just throw me a composite. I mean, not a composite. You don't just throw me a collage. Give me something with a concept, with a story to it. You're most welcome. Thanks, Linda. Thanks, Kent. Thanks, Rick. Yep, keep watching it as much as you want. The videos I'm gonna start rendering this video, and then I'm gonna upload it to YouTube and have the link onto Google Drive today. Mahalo. Thank you, Eric. And I look forward to seeing everybody at Hawaii Photocon virtually this October, I believe it is, or November. I forget what it is. Rick knows. Mahalo. November 7th and 8th. Yes. I'll be there presenting. Look forward to seeing everybody. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.